Carol Burnett, loved throughout America for her friendly smile and wonderful sense of humor, has always been regarded as Hollywood's nicest woman. However, after many years of keeping a composed and elegant public image, she recently shocked everyone. Now in her 90s, she spoke candidly in an unusual interview with Rolling Stone about the men she truly disliked during her lifetime. These weren't people she barely knew. They were men who had significant roles in her professional life and personal relationships. Some broke her trust through affairs or heated arguments about money and property. Others misused their influence to keep her off major programs like Saturday Night Live for many years. A younger man even ridiculed her publicly in an offensive comedy sketch, which pushed Burnett to file a lawsuit to protect her reputation. So who were these men that caused such deep pain to this famous TV star? And which one could she never bring herself to forgive? Among them was Harvey Korman, her most dependable co-star at one time, but also the person behind a heated confrontation that made Carol face one of the toughest choices of her professional life: letting him go. In the glamorous era of 1970s television, where every successful joke meant better viewer numbers and profitable advertising contracts, the Carol Burnett Show stood at the top. The show's foundation was Carol Burnett and Harvey Korman, a partnership so naturally coordinated that viewers thought they were destined to work together. Carol represented the show's essence, while Harvey connected the humor to every viewer. However, beneath the cheering and comedy, problems were quietly developing. A long friendship was starting to break apart. When 1974 arrived and the show began its 7th season, audience ratings reached their highest point. CBS had extended the show for another 3 years, and the cast had just won their 4th Emmy Award. Still, that same year, the tension between Burnett and Korman started becoming visible. Costume creator Bob Mackie later shared that Korman had grown cranky, easily annoyed, and had even started keeping his distance from Carol when not filming. A quiet conflict was building, one that would eventually transform everything. Some thought Harvey Korman started feeling less important than Burnett, concerned that her popularity had overshadowed his own growing career. The conflict finally erupted one April afternoon at Studio 33, Television City, Los Angeles. The production team was practicing an episode featuring guest vocalist Petula Clark, who had recently flown in from London. While Korman performed his scene, a lighting error left his face hidden in darkness. He abruptly stopped, tossed his script onto the ground, and yelled, "After working here all these years, can't anybody do this correctly?" Everyone became motionless. Director Dave Powers attempted to settle him down, but Korman continued complaining that even Carol hadn't noticed the problem. That comment struck a nerve. Burnett, famous for her gentle nature and patient leadership, rose from her seat in the viewing area and approached the stage.
Speaking in a steady, controlled voice, she stated clearly, "Harvey, I've reached my limit. If you cannot show respect to everyone working here, then you shouldn't be here." The whole studio became completely silent. According to Bob Mackie's book, Even More Laughs, the silence was so profound you could hear the smallest sound. Korman looked at her briefly, then exited the set. Nobody went after him. That afternoon, one cameraman remembered Burnett sitting by herself for more than half an hour, staring at Korman's vacant chair and quietly saying, "I didn't want things to finish this way." But he crossed a line. A few hours later, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner published the headline, "Harvey Korman Departs the Carol Burnett Show During Rehearsal." CBS provided no official statement, but speculation spread rapidly. Writers at Variety suggested Burnett had finally reached her breaking point after months of building tension. For the following 3 days, Hollywood was buzzing constantly. Burnett's friend, Vicki Lawrence, attempted to contact Korman, but he remained unreachable. Burnett continued production, never speaking his name afterward. One crew member later described Carol Burnett as composed but visibly tired. Then on Wednesday morning, CBS got a telephone call. It was Harvey Korman. He spoke quietly to the assistant. "I need to speak with Carol." When Burnett answered, his voice trembled. "I was in the wrong," he said. "I want to return." The following day, Korman appeared at the team's morning gathering. Everyone observed silently as he apologized to the staff, then faced Burnett. "I forgot my original purpose," he confessed. Carol smiled warmly, stepped closer, and embraced him. The studio filled with applause, but those watching could tell that something between them had permanently shifted. Korman remained with the Carol Burnett Show until 1977, then quietly departed. Burnett maintained contact, though their friendship never completely healed. In a 1983 conversation with Entertainment Tonight, when questioned about Korman, she smiled and responded gently, "Harvey brought me more laughter than anyone else and caused me the biggest headaches." The incident, which became known as the Studio 33 confrontation, turned into one of CBS's most talked-about backstage moments, a testament to how delicate creative collaborations become when pride gets involved. Following this, Burnett grew tougher and more focused, but also more protective of herself. She stopped letting feelings disrupt her professional duties. However, the difficulties in her life weren't finished. Behind the sparkling achievements of the Carol Burnett Show, the production that created television history, existed a marriage quietly falling apart.
Carol Burnett and her husband, Joe Hamilton, previously praised as CBS's ideal couple, watched their world of happiness gradually disappear into quietness and sadness. Their relationship started in 1960, when Burnett was a rising talent on The Garry Moore Show. Joe Hamilton, an experienced producer 10 years her senior, had previously worked on The Steve Allen Show and The Colgate Comedy Hour. They first met during a CBS recording session in New York. Burnett later remembered, "He looked at me in a manner that made me feel genuinely important." 3 years afterward, they got married in a small California ceremony with only close friends and co-workers present. When the Carol Burnett Show first aired in 1967, Joe Hamilton had assumed responsibility behind the cameras as producer, guide, and spouse. For 4 years, they were the ideal creative partnership. She provided warmth, he offered organization. But even achievement can put pressure on a solid relationship. Costume creator Bob Mackie remembered that around 1975, Hamilton had begun taking more authority. He demanded approval over guest selections and scripts before Burnett reviewed them. During one discussion, he proposed removing emotional content and concentrating solely on comedy. Burnett opposed this, stating audiences need both emotion and laughter. That marked the beginning of an increasing creative and personal separation. As job demands grew, Hamilton spent less time at home. Initially, Burnett assumed it was simply new assignments. Then came whispers. In August 1979, TV Guide implied that an established producer was engaged in a private affair inside a Los Angeles editing room. No identities were specified, but people understood. Staff members frequently observed Hamilton with a young CBS editor at the Show House restaurant close to the studio. Burnett didn't confront him right away, but close friend Vicki Lawrence mentioned she became emotional after accidentally hearing coworkers talk about Joe's overly friendly behavior. The final moment arrived in 1982. While examining contracts, Burnett's attorney discovered that Hamilton had established Hamilton Productions in Beverly Hills, recording spin-off ventures from the Carol Burnett Show under his personal name. One project was Mama's Family, inspired by a Burnett comedy sketch, but lacking her credited ownership. That became the final breaking point. Burnett confronted him at their CBS workspace. According to the biography, Laughing Till It Hurts, she questioned, "Do you believe it's fair to transform what we created together into something exclusively yours?"
Hamilton responded coldly, "It's commerce, Carol, not feelings." That finished everything. On March 3, 1983, Burnett submitted divorce papers in Los Angeles County Court. The Los Angeles Times published the headline, "Carol Burnett and Joe Hamilton separate." But beneath it was one of Hollywood's most complex property disputes. Hamilton sought complete production ownership, including revenues from the Carol Burnett Show and associated ventures. Burnett battled to maintain the name and half the income. The legal case continued for almost a year. News reporters from People, Variety, and USA Today gathered outside every day. Burnett remained poised, while Hamilton appeared exhausted. They seldom communicated. In June 1984, the court decided Burnett retained ownership of the show's name, while Hamilton obtained 40% of rerun revenues. When questioned about her reaction, Burnett smiled slightly. "We were the perfect team until he forgot I was more than a collaborator." That statement was featured on People magazine's front page and repeated throughout talk programs nationwide. Following the divorce, Burnett severed all connections with Hamilton's productions. His subsequent programs never achieved his previous accomplishments. He died from heart complications in 1991. Burnett didn't go to the funeral service, but sent white flowers with a message stating, "I wish you peace, Joe. As for me, I'll continue forward." Brief, but containing everything left unspoken. Years afterward, during a conversation at the Paley Center for Media, she said quietly, "Joe showed me that in this industry, love alone isn't sufficient. You also require trust."
Marlon Brando, a midnight phone call that left Burnett furious. The third man on her list was Marlon Brando. Some Hollywood tales seem like rumors until you discover they actually happened. One of the most unusual involved Carol Burnett, CBS's comedy royalty, and Marlon Brando, who had recently amazed audiences with The Godfather in 1972. It was a peaceful summer evening in July 1972. Los Angeles was resting, its hillsides faintly illuminated along Coldwater Canyon, where Burnett resided with her two daughters. At 3 a.m., the telephone rang. The housekeeper, believing it was an urgent studio matter, awakened her. Burnett responded sleepily, then became alert when she recognized a low masculine voice. "Carol, this is Marlon Brando." She believed it was a joke until he referenced watching a repeated episode of The Carol Burnett Show on CBS. Understanding it was genuinely Brando, she thanked him courteously, anticipating the conversation would finish, but it continued. The discussion lasted more than 30 minutes. Brando discussed acting, Hollywood, and how television requires more women like her. His voice became increasingly slower and gentler, his comments becoming inappropriate. Burnett later stated, "I understood I was talking to the actual Marlon Brando, not one of his characters. He was attractive, intelligent, but risky." When his remarks became excessively personal, Burnett interrupted decisively but politely. "Mr. Brando, I value your compliments, but it's extremely late. I have an early schedule tomorrow." She ended the call, assuming it was finished. By morning, Hollywood was in an uproar. The Hollywood Reporter featured the headline, "Marlon Brando telephones Carol Burnett at 3 a.m." The Los Angeles Herald-Examiner continued with, "Brando discovers inspiration in CBS's comedy queen." Entertainment columnist Luella Parsons and Rona Barrett stated the conversation extended beyond an hour and that Brando appeared infatuated. CBS issued a statement indicating the call was completely personal. Infuriated, Burnett requested her public relations staff to halt the speculation, but the narrative continued circulating. An unnamed source even suggested Brando called again several days later, but Burnett refused to answer. According to Vicki Lawrence, Burnett felt embarrassed and upset, worried the audience would misunderstand everything. During lunch at Musso and Frank Grill, she shared with her friend, "He violated boundaries. I cannot believe someone like Marlon Brando considers a late-night call appropriate." Following that evening, Burnett completely avoided him. At every public appearance, she ensured they never appeared in the same photograph. At the 1974 AFI Awards, when Brando unexpectedly arrived on the entrance carpet, she immediately turned away. Journalists thought it was accidental, but people in the industry understood the truth. From that point forward, her monthly public relations schedules contained a private instruction: do not participate in events with Brando attending. It was never made public, but a previous CBS employee verified in Hollywood Inside Out that Burnett reliably avoided any occasion where Brando might be present. Brando never remarked publicly, although acquaintances said he once joked, "Carol is overly serious. It was simply a chat." Rather than reducing the strain, that statement only intensified it, strengthening his reputation for arrogance. For Burnett, it wasn't simply about personal insult. It became an enduring lesson about limits and confidence within entertainment. From that evening forward, she became more reserved and cautious. One previous crew member mentioned Burnett never picked up calls after midnight again, not even from CBS. But the following hurt would be even worse. Not a private offense this occasion, but a public embarrassment before hundreds of Hollywood attendees. It originated from Cary Grant, who openly ridiculed Burnett's accessible humor. Hollywood in 1968 was entirely glamour, champagne, and excessive pride. The Carol Burnett Show had recently become a sensation, dominating the Emmys and transforming Carol into one of television's most prominent celebrities. That same year, Cary Grant, the symbol of enduring sophistication from Hollywood's golden era, was honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. Two celebrities, two eras. They should have only met to share kind congratulations.
But that evening at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, one thoughtless remark created a division between two legends that would never fully mend. The celebration, held in the hotel's International Ballroom, was crowded with icons: Lucille Ball, Gregory Peck, Elizabeth Taylor, and Jack Lemmon among them. Carol Burnett entered wearing a deep red dress created by Bob Mackie, looking radiant and self-assured. Following the awards, she walked toward Cary Grant's table, champagne glass held, prepared to offer congratulations. Film reviewer Roger Ebert, who was present at the occasion, later documented that as Burnett approached the table, the mood unexpectedly changed. A director seated next to Grant attempted to ease the tension, commenting, "Have you watched Carol's program? The entire nation adores it." Grant produced a small smirk. His manner was refined but filled with sarcasm. "Oh, that program. The one where she gestures wildly, pulls faces, and performs excessively. I don't comprehend why audiences appreciate that kind of entertainment." Cary Grant's statement dropped into the ballroom like a rock thrown into calm water. Some attendees laughed uncomfortably. Others became silent. Burnett maintained her smile, but her demeanor transformed. Without elevating her voice, she answered calmly, "Perhaps people enjoy laughing with genuine individuals rather than with flawlessness." The table grew silent. Burnett offered a courteous nod and departed, leaving Grant motionless with a rigid smile. Hollywood never forgets such moments. 2 days following, the Los Angeles Times featured a brief entertainment notice titled "Cary Grant and Carol Burnett, a frosty exchange at the Beverly Hilton." Though the piece was short, it suggested that Grant had dismissed Burnett's relatable comedic approach. The account circulated rapidly throughout the industry. Some supported Grant, claiming he was merely joking. But television viewers, particularly women, were outraged. CBS, the channel broadcasting The Carol Burnett Show, acted quickly. They issued a brief but direct statement. Carol Burnett embodies humor that is compassionate and smart, laughter created from understanding, not silliness. The language was courteous, but everyone recognized they were addressing Grant. Burnett remained quiet, but Grant only made matters worse. In a conversation with Variety journalist Art Silverman, when questioned about American television comedy, he stated, "I favor a more sophisticated humor, something nearer to the European approach. Television currently attempts too aggressively to be amusing." He didn't identify anyone specifically, but everyone understood his target. Gossip publications went beyond this. asserting Grant had directly told Burnett that she made comedy lose its class. Though never verified, the speculation circulated swiftly, angering her supporters. CBS noted that viewer correspondence doubled in November 1968, mostly showing support for Carol. Her self-control impressed everyone. She didn't reply publicly or give interviews, she simply continued her work. That season, the Carol Burnett Show achieved its greatest ratings ever. She even brought her close friend and fellow icon, Lucille Ball, to appear in a special episode. Lucille later commented, "Carol informed me the finest response is when they switch on the television and still see us present." Nevertheless, Burnett never forgot that evening. When Paramount Pictures later presented her a co-starring position with Cary Grant in a 1970 musical production, she graciously refused, mentioning schedule conflicts. A friend later disclosed she stated privately, "I won't collaborate with someone who dismisses women's comedy." Grant never expressed regret or mentioned the situation again. Yet in Grant's biography, Cary Grant, A Class Apart, it's documented that Grant once acknowledged, "Carol is such an intelligent, powerful woman, she made me feel uncomfortable." Paradoxically, his contempt only strengthened Burnett's resolve. She continued depicting everyday people, housewives, maids, seamstresses, characters with modest lives and generous hearts. Within 3 years, she earned her 3 straight Emmys, and The Carol Burnett Show was recognized as one of TV Guide's timeless American television shows. From that encounter, Burnett discovered one permanent truth. There's no necessity to debate. Let achievement do the talking. Yet as Carol Burnett's recognition continued rising, her very achievement appeared to disturb certain influential men in the business. One of them was Lorne Michaels. Burnett had repeatedly claimed he dismissed women and intentionally kept her away from Saturday Night Live. In American television, this continues to be one of the most peculiar puzzles.
For almost 50 years, Carol Burnett, the woman who created opportunities for female-focused comedy, was never asked to host SNL. Considering her reputation, many viewed it as an intentional snub. To comprehend it, we must go back to 1975, the year Saturday Night Live first broadcast live from Studio 8H at Rockefeller Plaza. During that period, The Carol Burnett Show on CBS was in its 8th season and continued as the highest-rated variety program in the country. Burnett symbolized sincere, character-focused humor, while Michaels was developing a fresh style of clever, provocative, politically aware satire. In the beginning days, reviewers like Harriet Van Horn of the New York Post recommended that Burnett should host SNL to connect 2 generations of comedy. The suggestion appeared innocent, but signaled the beginning of an extended cold distance that persisted for decades. Within NBC, Burnett's identity supposedly emerged during planning for Season 2 in 1976, but Michaels allegedly rejected the notion, stating she doesn't match the show's character. According to Live from New York, Back Bay Books, 2002, one editor recalled Michaels describing Burnett as the image of outdated television and "we're creating something fresh." That remark fueled years of speculation. In 1981, journalist Tom Shales documented in the Washington Post that Burnett had shown interest in hosting multiple times, but never got a reply. The piece triggered outrage. Hundreds of supporters contacted NBC, questioning why the country's most cherished female comedian had been overlooked. A week following, NBC released a short statement. Guest hosts are selected based on each season's material and atmosphere. Few accepted it. In reality, Burnett had never publicly requested to host, but many industry people said she felt quietly rejected. During a late 1980s visit on Larry King Live, when questioned about the situation, Burnett smiled and responded with subtle irony. "Perhaps I'm simply not provocative enough for them." Those who collaborated with Michaels portrayed him as inflexible about what SNL stood for: youthful, defiant, and ironic, the reverse of Burnett's compassionate, relatable comedy. A former editor informed Rolling Stone in 1990 that Michaels had once turned down a major sponsor's recommendation to feature Burnett in the show's 10th anniversary celebration, commenting, "We admire her, but that's not our style of comedy." That statement solidified the separation. As time passed, their connection remained cold. In 1991, at a Television Academy gathering in Los Angeles, both Burnett and Michaels were arranged to present. Journalist Bill Carter of the New York Times later portrayed how the crowd gave Burnett a standing ovation. Moments afterward, when Michaels approached the stage, Burnett remained seated, smiling faintly, her gaze directed at the camera. The footage appeared on Entertainment Tonight and was immediately labeled the coldest stare in Hollywood. The narrative might have disappeared into history until 2023, when NBC created Carol Burnett, 90 Years of Laughter and Love, to celebrate her legacy. During a discussion with The Hollywood Reporter, a journalist questioned if she felt disappointed never hosting SNL. Burnett smiled graciously and answered, "I suppose they didn't require me, but I didn't require them either." That single statement ended 50 years of quietness. Within 24 hours, the hashtag #InviteCarol to SNL became widespread, with thousands of supporters insisting that NBC finally correct things. Later, during a discussion at the Paley Center for Media, Burnett considered, "Some individuals don't understand that kindness possesses its own form of strength." After that, she decided to appear less frequently on contemporary television, choosing to maintain her classic image. Yet destiny had another surprise. If you found Carol Burnett's incredible story touching and inspiring, please take a moment to like this video and share it with your friends and family. Your support helps us bring more untold stories from Hollywood's golden era. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming content about the legends who shaped entertainment history. Leave a comment below telling us what you think about Carol's strength and grace in facing these challenges. We'd love to hear your thoughts.